Hey guys, welcome back for episode 5. My name's Nick Jamel, and I'm just a guy here trying to enter into the conversation of our generation and talk, a little bit about things that I come across, and whether it's historical works or whether it's music or philosophy or politics, ideas, and whatever. And so, and it's just to give thoughts on it and to do more than scratch the surface on things. I want to kind of do 10 minutes of talking about stuff or 15 minutes of talking about stuff and kind of delve into the idea, and hopefully in that put something out there of substance that's not 140 characters, or trying to fill an hour-long show on History Channel about something that could be said in 20 minutes. um, so I want something in between where you get a good amount of information about a particular thing, and um, and then you can start the dialogue from there. And whether or not you disagree is fine. You know, comment below and let me know if you have an idea of something to talk about that you want to hear about because you want my opinion on it, or you just want it out here and to start the discourse on it. Talk to me. Put a comment in the comment section and let me know. And if you like what I'm doing, I ask that you just like my videos, subscribe, share it with people. Putting it out on social media, Twitter, Facebook. You know, sending videos to people that you know would like it, and just helping me out there would be really important. Really help me out with getting this going, and the more people we get in the conversation, I think the more points of view we get, the better we can get to the root of the truth, that I think is a little bit more than just that surface level that it seems that we're at right now with most social media. So today, the thing that I really want to talk about is The Prince by Machiavelli, and I'm going to ask the question on it whether or not he actually says, or whether or not he implies, at least with the way he says it, that the ends justify the means. This is something that a lot of people kind of attribute to him, whether or not it's that he coined it or if he popularized it, but in some respect, most people kind of say that he's one of the guys who justifies what princes do as long as the ends justify the means. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background. That'll kind of help make my argument as to why I say that that's not the case of what he's saying. So, um, so let's start on it. Machiavelli was born in in the 1460s in Italy. And at the time, Italy was basically just a bunch of city-states, almost like ancient Greece, and they were kind of battling with each other, trying to conquer each other, and a lot of people were trying to unite Italy in some way. A lot of external forces, France and Switzerland, and a lot of those places were kind of putting their, 2 cents in and backing this guy versus that guy, because they're just it was just like a chessboard for the rest of Europe at the time to get power, because there's a lot of power in Italy because of the church, the Catholic Church. And so, they wanted to control power in Italy so that they could control the Pope, and therefore, your country, if you have the Pope, has a lot more sway because they'll favor you, because the Pope was a political actor more than anything at the time, which is a conversation for another day. But, so that's kind of what's going on in Italy at the time. Machiavelli, where he comes in, is he's a political advisor and diplomat for a few different people. He has a great understanding of military tactics. He has a great understanding of diplomacy as well. He's sent on missions to France and all over Europe, really, for diplomacy by multiple people. Even eventually some of his enemies end up employing him near the end of his life to do the same thing because they realized they needed him. And so that's kind of who Machiavelli is. He eventually, because of he was a Republican at the time, meant that he wanted a republic, not what it means today. But he didn't want to have a monarchy or some duke that's put in place because of France propping him up, or blah blah blah. He didn't want all that. He wanted to have the people kind of governing themselves and have some sort of election based government. And so, I mean, obviously at the time that was quite the radical idea, and he was a part of the Florentine Republic. And when that fell, the people who conquered the Florentine Republic, um, I believe they were backed by the French at the time. I could be wrong about that, but the people who did that threw him out, and they actually put him into exile. And at the time, Machiavelli was even he wrote about the Republic, and but he also, when he was exiled, he had a lot of time on his hands, so he wrote several things. He has discourses, he has lots of other writings, some biographies of princes, but what the biggest thing he does is the Prince, and it's an objective observation of multiple leaders throughout history, not just Italian leaders. It can be, he goes back to like the ancient leaders of like some Greeks um, and like I think even like Syria and those areas as well, and he identifies what they did and identifies how they navigated their time. And so the important part about it is that he um, he basically is trying to explain how to capitalize on what your times are, and what, like the skill sets and the tactfulness that it requires. And so he identifies the princes who navigated it well or poorly, and says how they could have done better based on what he calls fortune and virtue, which fortune is, it's kind of, you're just born into it. It's the things you can't control necessarily, but you can capitalize on it or you can succumb to it, and that's decided basically based on your virtue, is what he says. Your skills, your tactfulness, your ability, your military prowess. It can even be how virtuous you are, and that's what his argument is. And I think that's something that kind of exists today in a lot of respects. Is, it's, you kind of have a control on your destiny. I mean, you can get slapped in the face, but you can still overcome those things. And so the line, though, so that's a little bit of background. He's an objective observer, and he says, and he's a historian and an objective observer more than a moralizer. He doesn't really say whether these things are morally right or wrong. He says whether or not they work. And so that's kind of where he's coming from. And so the line that it's kind of attributed to, the ends justify the means, is this. It comes at the end of this sentence, but I'm going to go through all of it. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few feel what you are, and those few do not dare to oppose themselves to the opinion of the many, who have the majesty of the state to defend them. And in the actions of all men, and especially of princes, where there is no court of appeal, one looks at the outcome. So there's no moralizing. If there's no court that can decide justice, then the outcome is, it's your court of appeal. So if I mean, that's what it is. He's talking about that, basically. He's saying that princes are judged on the outcome, because you can either overthrow them or be ruled by them. I mean, those are your two options at the time, really. There wasn't, a 4-year election cycle for it or anything like that. It was, are they doing a good job, right? Like, are the people happy? Because if you can make the people happy, is kind of what he's saying. This is, here, I'll tell you the chapter too, is, because it's a little relevant, how princes must keep their word. So that's the title of the chapter. And so that's what the whole thing's about. It's, are you keeping your word with the many? Because, the nobility who the barons and the dukes and those people who could overthrow you, you don't really have to keep them happy. You have to keep them suppressed. But the people you have to keep happy, because if you piss off the people, then they're the ones who can rebel. You can keep your guard, you have a military under you, but if those barons see that the people are unhappy and they want power, then they can organize the people and overthrow you. And so the point is you have to keep, he's saying not that it's right or wrong, that you are doing things to suppress the people who oppose you, because he says it on here, few feel what you are, and those few do not dare to impose themselves. So there are people who will see what you are for what you are, who you are for who you are. People will realize that, but those people are the few, and those people are the people who are close to you. Those people are generally the people in power. It's like none of us know what a lot of our politicians are doing, but the politicians all know what each other are doing, in some respect, probably. And so I think that's kind of what he's saying is those people will know, but as long as those people fear you, then you don't have to worry about them. You have to worry about the masses, because they won't speak out against you. Because if you have I don't know, let's think of like a great example. If you have I don't know, let's think of like a great example. If you speak out against like Abraham Lincoln, like now, people like adore him. Everybody, both sides of the aisle adore him, because he's the guy who ended slavery. I mean, he did an amazing thing. He did an amazing job as a president, and you can criticize aspects of it, obviously, but like if someone came out and just said he's a bad president, then you're gonna get like a backlash by people, and that's fair, and that's very fair. But he's saying you don't need to be a moral leader necessarily. You just need to have the appearance of that to maintain power, and you have to keep the people happy. And so, because as long as people are happy, the people who oppose you cannot turn them against you, because you won in the court of appeal, or the court of public opinion, I'm sorry. So that's what he's talking about. And I think that, and it's an objective outlook on it. So that's the thing that I think we have to realize is there's an ability to, we need to have an ability to look at something and say, this is what's happening, and then to also have the conversation of whether or not it's right or wrong. Because right now I think there's such a muddled conversation in our day of, well, this is what I believe, and so this is how I see this thing, and we moralize issues that don't need to be moralized, and that really could be, if you look at it from an objective perspective, and you just say, here's the facts of the case, how do we approach this, you'll find a lot better solutions than if you have, people arguing because this is how they feel, and I think this, and blah blah blah. If you can put it down to the basics, like he does in this, you can see what's happening, and you can make corrections. And I think that's where I would like to see us go in the future, because it definitely seems as though this over moralization of basic things has gotten in the way of progress for our country and making it better for people. But that's my take on it. I don't assume that I have all the answers to it, but I think getting to an objective analysis from each person in our frame of reference will get us to a place where we can have a discussion and we can bring different points of view and really come to a good conclusion. And so I hope that this kind of opens up that dialogue, and I wanted to kind of do it early on so that you can kind of see where I'm coming from a lot of these things. I will moralize some arguments, and I will have those kinds of philosophical debates, but on a lot of my political things, this is kind of how I approach politics now. And I hope that this is a way that if you read The Prince, it's a great way to look at politics, because you can see the workings of it, and you can see that even people you kind of agree with or who are of your party, you can see how they attain power and how they have to compromise sometimes, but how they also want to, when they want to retain power, they can be the benevolent leader that they want instead of being the principled leader that you voted in. And so just keep an eye, read this book. It's not terribly long. I mean, this is like a bunch of other writings, and it's not terribly thick. I'm still reading through a couple of his other writings, but I finished The Prince a while ago, and I've had a lot of time to think on it, and I loved reading it. It was really intriguing. So I think that's all I have to say for that today. I just want to say, join in on the conversation of our generation with me, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. if you're watching this, or if you're like the video. You know, if you don't, you know, comment below and tell me why I suck, politely, or why I'm wrong, or, you know, give me an idea of something that you want me to talk about, and I'd be glad to. I'll keep an eye out in the comment sections and see and answer questions as best I can. And then also do your own research and look at these things too for yourself and make a educated opinion. Don't just listen to me. I'm not a scholar. I'm 22 years old and I don't know everything.